Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a day? That's what she asked him, a complete stranger she'd only served coffee to every morning. A single dad who barely spoke, who carried grief in his eyes like a weight he couldn't put down. She was desperate, humiliated, terrified of facing the people who'd made her childhood a living nightmare. She expected him to say no, to walk away like everyone else had. But what he said next didn't just stun her, it changed both their lives forever. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. It was a cold Tuesday morning in late October when Zenith Dunn did something she'd never done before. She chased a customer out of the cafe. Joel Carver was halfway to his truck when he heard footsteps rushing behind him. He turned to find Zenith standing there in her apron, cheeks flushed pink from the cold air, her breath coming in short bursts. "I'm sorry," she blurted out, her voice trembling. "I know this is probably the weirdest thing anyone's ever asked you, but—" She stopped, pressing her lips together as if trying to hold back tears. Her hands were shaking. Joel froze. He'd been coming to Rosie's Corner Cafe every morning for nearly 2 years, and in all that time, Zenith had never followed him outside. She'd never looked at him with this kind of desperation in her eyes. "Can I talk to you for just 1 minute, please?"
Joel wasn't good at conversations anymore. He had forgotten how to be. After his wife died 3 years ago, he'd built walls so high that even his own 7-year-old daughter couldn't always climb over them. But something in Zenith's expression, raw vulnerability mixed with quiet courage, made him stay. "Sure," he said quietly, setting his coffee on the hood of his truck. Zenith took a shaky breath, her eyes fixed on the cracked pavement beneath her feet. "I have a high school reunion this Saturday. I've been avoiding it for 10 years. Every single year I throw away the invitation because I can't face them." Her voice cracked. "I can't face the people who made my life miserable." Joel frowned slightly, waiting. "The people who called me horrible names. They said I was ugly, that I'd never amount to anything, that no one would ever love someone like me." She let out a bitter laugh that held no humor at all. "And for a long time, I believed them." Joel felt something tighten in his chest. Not pity, something deeper. Recognition. "This year," Zenith said, "I decided I wanted to go. Not to prove anything to them, really, but to prove something to myself. To show myself that I survived, that I'm still here and they didn't break me." She looked directly at him now, vulnerability written across every feature. "But I can't go alone. I can't. And I don't have anyone. My parents passed away when I was young, and I don't really have friends. I work, I go home, I read books. That's my life." The morning traffic hummed in the distance. A few early shoppers passed by on the sidewalk, but Joel barely noticed them. He was focused entirely on this woman who'd always been kind to him, who remembered his daughter's name, who asked about his day even when he only gave one-word answers. "I've been watching you," Zenith admitted, her cheeks turning a deeper shade of pink. "Not in a creepy way, I promise, but I see you every morning. You're kind. You're gentle. You always say please and thank you, even when you look exhausted. And I just thought, maybe—" She took another shaky breath. "Would you pretend to be my boyfriend for 1 day? Just for the reunion. I'll pay you if you want. I just need someone to stand beside me so I don't feel so small." The words hung in the cold October air between them. Joel should have said no. He should have made an excuse, told her he had to pick up his daughter, had work, had anything else to do. Walking away would have been easier, safer. But instead he found himself remembering something he spent years trying to forget. He was 12 years old again, standing in the hallway of Ashford Middle School, wearing jeans that were 2 sizes too big because his mother had bought them at a thrift store. They were the only pants he had that didn't have holes in the knees. "Nice floods, Carver," someone shouted. "Did you fish those out of a dumpster?"
Laughter erupted around him, cruel, cutting laughter that followed him into every classroom, every lunch period, every moment of his childhood. They pushed him into lockers, stole his lunch, called him dumpster boy and trash kid, and worse things that still echoed in his head on his darkest days. Joel had been that skinny, awkward kid who wore clothes that didn't fit because his family couldn't afford new ones, a kid who was mocked relentlessly for being poor, for being different, for existing in a world that seemed determined to crush him. He'd transformed himself over the years, built muscle working construction, found success, created a life he was proud of. But the scars remained. They always would. Looking at Zenith now, standing before him with tears in her eyes and hope she was afraid to fully embrace, Joel saw a reflection of his own pain, and he couldn't walk away from that. "You don't have to pay me," he said softly. Zenith's eyes widened. "What? What time should I pick you up?" For a moment, she just stared at him, as if trying to determine whether he was serious or playing some cruel joke. But Joel's expression was steady, genuine. "You'll do it?" she whispered. "Really?" Joel nodded. "Really." Something broke open in Zenith's chest. For the first time since she'd received that reunion invitation 3 weeks ago, she felt like she could breathe. A real, joyful laugh escaped her lips, the kind of laugh that comes from relief so profound it borders on disbelief. "Thank you," she said, tears now streaming freely down her cheeks. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to me." "Saturday," Joel confirmed, picking up his coffee. "Text me your address." As he drove away toward the construction site, Joel's hands gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. He hadn't been to any kind of social event since Margot died. The thought of walking into a room full of strangers, of pretending to be someone's boyfriend, of acting like a normal person who knew how to smile and make small talk, it terrified him. But he'd seen something in Zenith's eyes that he recognized too well, the look of someone who'd been made to feel worthless. Someone who'd internalized every cruel word, every dismissive glance, every moment of rejection. He knew that look because he'd worn it himself for years. The week passed in a strange blur. Joel went through his usual routine, dropping his daughter Staris off at her grandmother's house every morning at 6:47 a.m., working 10-hour shifts at the construction site, picking Staris up in the evening, helping with homework, tucking her into bed. It had been this way for 3 years, ever since that terrible night when Margot collapsed at the dinner table. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was gone. A rare heart defect no one knew she had. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone. Joel had closed himself off after that. He'd built a fortress around his heart because losing someone you loved that suddenly, that completely, was a pain he never wanted to risk feeling again. He worked, he cared for Staris. He existed, but he didn't really live. Rosie's Corner Cafe had become the only place where the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. Not because of the coffee, though it was the best in Ashford, Ohio, but because of Zenith. She remembered everything. She knew Staris's favorite color was blue. She asked if his daughter had recovered from that cold she'd had 2 weeks ago. She wished him luck when he mentioned he was bidding on a big project at work. These were small things, tiny gestures that most people wouldn't think twice about. But to Joel, who'd been invisible for so long, they meant everything. And now, somehow, he was going to be her pretend boyfriend. Saturday arrived too quickly. Joel stood in front of his closet, staring at the few dress shirts he owned. He hadn't worn anything but work clothes and t-shirts in years. Margot used to pick out his nice clothes, used to tell him which tie matched which shirt. Now he was on his own, feeling hopelessly lost. "Daddy, you look fancy!" Staris's voice came from the doorway. Joel turned to find his daughter watching him with wide, curious eyes. She was small for 7, with Margot's blonde curls and Joel's quiet demeanor. Since her mother's death, she'd become even more reserved, speaking in whispers and spending most of her time drawing pictures or reading books alone in her room. "I'm going to help a friend," Joel explained, buttoning a navy blue shirt. "The nice lady from the coffee place?" Staris asked. Joel paused. "How did you know?" "You told Grandma. I heard you." Staris tilted her head. "I like her. She gave me a cookie once when you brought me inside. She said it was a princess cookie because I'm a princess." Something warm flickered in Joel's chest. He'd forgotten about that day last month when he'd had to bring Steris with him because his mother-in-law was sick. Zenith had knelt down to Steris's level, decorated a sugar cookie with pink frosting, and treated his shy daughter like she was the most important person in the world. "Yeah," Joel said softly. "I like her too." When Joel pulled up to Zenith's apartment building on the south side of Ashford, his breath caught in his throat. Zenith stepped out wearing a deep emerald dress that flowed elegantly around her curves. Her blonde hair, usually pulled back in a messy work bun, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her makeup was subtle but radiant, and when she smiled at him, nervous but genuine, Joel felt his heart skip in a way that it hadn't in years. She was beautiful. Not in spite of her plus-size figure, but simply undeniably beautiful. "You look—" Joel started, then found himself at a loss for words. Zenith's smile faltered. "Too much? I can change." "Beautiful," Joel finished. "You look beautiful." Her cheeks flushed pink, and that genuine smile returned. "You cleaned up pretty well yourself."
The drive to the Ashford Grand Hotel took 20 minutes. The hotel had seen better days. Its Victorian architecture was impressive but faded, the parking lot cracked and uneven. But it still carried an air of faded elegance, the kind of place that probably hosted most of the town's significant events. As they walked toward the entrance, Joel felt Zenith's hand slip into the crook of his arm. Her grip was tight, her knuckles white. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No," she admitted. "But I'm here." That was brave, Joel thought. Showing up to face your demons even when you were terrified. That took a kind of courage most people never had to find. The reunion was being held in the hotel's grand ballroom. Music drifted through the open doors, some popular song from their high school years that Joel vaguely recognized. Inside, about 60 people mingled in groups, drinking from plastic wine glasses and laughing too loudly. The moment they crossed the threshold, Joel felt Zenith's entire body tense beside him. Her grip on his arm tightened even more, and her breathing became shallow. Then he saw why. A group of 5 women stood near the bar, all dressed in expensive clothes with perfectly styled hair. They turned their heads in unison, and Joel watched recognition flicker across their faces. The ringleader, a tall, thin blonde with sharp features and sharper eyes, broke away from the group and approached. She moved like a predator who'd just spotted prey. "Well, well, well," the woman purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Zenith Dunn. I didn't think you'd actually show up."
Her gaze swept over Zenith's dress, her hair, her body, lingering on every curve with barely concealed disdain. Her lip curled slightly. "Still the same old Zenith, I see." Joel felt Zenith stiffen beside him. Her hand trembled against his arm. "Hello, Veronica," Zenith said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Veronica's smile widened, but there was nothing kind in it. It was the smile of someone who'd learned that cruelty could be delivered with perfect teeth and a pleasant tone. "And who's this?" Veronica continued, turning her attention to Joel. Her eyes traveled up and down his body with a calculating look that made his skin crawl. "Don't tell me you actually found someone willing to—" "That's enough." Joel's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through Veronica's words like a knife through silk. There was something in his tone, a quiet authority, a controlled intensity that made everyone within range fall silent and turn their heads.
He stepped forward, placing himself between Zenith and Veronica, and looked the woman directly in the eyes. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. "I don't know what happened in this school that made you think cruelty was something to be proud of," Joel said evenly. Each word was measured, deliberate. "But I do know this. Zenith is the kindest, most genuine person I've ever met." He could feel every eye in the room on him now, but he didn't care. "She remembers that my daughter's favorite color is blue, even though I only mentioned it once in passing. She asks about my day even when I give her one-word answers. She makes the world a little brighter just by existing in it." He paused, letting his words sink in. Veronica's confident smile had started to falter. "You spent years trying to tear her down, but here she is, standing tall and beautiful, while you're still the same miserable person you were in high school. That says everything anyone needs to know." The ballroom had gone completely silent. Someone's phone rang in the distance, but no one answered it. Veronica's face had turned an ugly shade of red. Her mouth opened and closed several times, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Her entourage stood frozen near the bar, suddenly finding their shoes very interesting. After what felt like an eternity, Veronica turned on her heel and walked away, her high heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. Her entourage scrambled to follow, whispering frantically among themselves. The moment they were gone, Joel turned back to Zenith. She was staring up at him with tears streaming down her cheeks, her brown eyes wide with wonder and disbelief.
"No one's ever stood up for me like that before," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No one." Joel gently reached up and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was tender, instinctive. "Then everyone before me was a fool," he said softly. Something passed between them in that moment, something that had nothing to do with pretending, nothing to do with fake relationships or reunion appearances. It was real and raw and completely unexpected. The rest of the reunion passed in a blur of unexpected magic. They danced, Joel moving stiffly at first because he hadn't danced since his wedding, but gradually relaxing as Zenith laughed and guided him through simple steps. They talked to old classmates who actually seemed genuine, people who'd been kind in high school and had grown into kind adults. One woman, a former classmate named Michelle, pulled Zenith aside near the end of the evening. "I owe you an apology," Michelle said quietly. "I never joined in when Veronica and her friends bullied you, but I never stopped them either. I was too afraid of becoming their next target. That was cowardly, and I'm sorry." Zenith felt tears prick her eyes again. "Thank you for saying that. Your boyfriend is right, you always were kind, even when people didn't deserve it. That takes real strength."
Veronica and her group stayed on the opposite side of the ballroom for the remainder of the evening, shooting occasional glares but keeping their distance. Joel noticed one of them try to approach Zenith when he went to get drinks, but a single look from him sent the woman scurrying back to her group. For the first time in 10 years, Zenith felt like she belonged somewhere. Not because she'd changed to fit their expectations, but because she'd finally found someone who saw her exactly as she was and thought that was more than enough. As the night wound down and they walked back to Joel's truck under a sky full of stars, Zenith couldn't stop smiling. "I can't believe you did that," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "The look on Veronica's face when you—" She laughed, a real laugh, full of joy and relief. Joel opened the passenger door for her. She deserved worse. Still, Zenith looked at him seriously. "Thank you. For everything. For coming with me. For standing up for me. For making me feel like I mattered." "You do matter," Joel said, simply, as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. During the drive back to her apartment, they talked more than they ever had before. Zenith told him about her parents, who died in a car accident when she was 19, leaving her completely alone in the world. She told him about the cafe, how it had become her safe space, how she poured all her loneliness into making perfect coffee and remembering people's orders. Joel found himself opening up too. He told her about Margot, about that terrible night at the dinner table, about how he'd been sleepwalking through life ever since.
Steris asks about her sometimes, Joel admitted, his voice rough with emotion. Wants to know if her mom can see her from heaven, if she's proud of the pictures she draws, and I never know what to say. Zenith reached over and squeezed his hand.
Tell her yes, because any mother would be proud of that little girl. When they arrived at Zenith's apartment, neither of them moved to get out of the truck right away. The silence between them was comfortable, warm. "Would you want to have dinner sometime?" Joel asked suddenly, surprising himself with his own boldness. "Like a real dinner, not pretend." Zenith's face lit up. "I'd love that." "Bring Scaris," she added quickly. "I'd like to get to know her better." Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in Joel's chest. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of something he'd thought was lost to him forever. The following Thursday, Zenith showed up at Joel's modest house on Elm Street carrying a bag of baking supplies. "I thought we could make cookies," she explained when Steris opened the door. "If that's okay with you?" Steris's eyes went wide. "Princess cookies?" "The most princess cookies that ever princessed," she confirmed solemnly. Joel watched from the kitchen doorway as Zenith knelt down to Steris's level, just like she had at the cafe. She asked about Steris's favorite colors, her favorite books, what she wanted to be when she grew up.
And Staris, his quiet, reserved daughter who barely spoke to anyone anymore, chatted away like she'd known Zenith her entire life. They made cookies, they made a mess, flour ended up in Staris's hair, and sugar somehow got on the ceiling. The kitchen looked like a disaster zone, and Joel couldn't remember the last time he'd heard this much laughter in his house. "Daddy, look!" Staris held up a cookie, decorated to look like a very lopsided princess. "It's me!" "It's perfect," Joel said, and meant it. As the evening wore on, Zenith helped Staris with a school project about family trees. Joel saw his daughter's face fall when she got to the branch where her mother should be, saw the way her small hand trembled as she drew the connection. "My teacher says heaven is at the top, so I drew Mommy there. Do you think she can see me?" Zenith set down the markers and pulled Staris into a gentle hug. "I think your mommy sees everything," she said softly. "Every cookie you make, every picture you draw, every time you make your daddy smile. I think she's so proud of you, sweetie." Stars buried her face in Zenith's shoulder and cried, the kind of crying that had been building up for 3 years, the kind that needed to come out. Joel stood in the doorway with tears in his own eyes, watching this woman he barely knew hold his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. The dinners became a regular thing, then the lazy Sunday afternoons, then the Saturday morning pancake breakfasts where Stars would insist on adding chocolate chips to the batter while Zenith pretended to be scandalized. Slowly, carefully, Joel's walls began to come down. He found himself laughing again, actually laughing, not just forcing polite smiles. He found himself looking forward to mornings, not just because of the coffee, but because he'd get to see Zenith's face light up when he walked through the door. Staris blossomed. The quiet, withdrawn little girl began talking more, laughing more. She started bringing home artwork from school again, proudly displaying it on the refrigerator. She asked if Zenith could come to her school recital, her eyes full of hope. "If your dad says it's okay," Zenith had said, glancing at Joel. "Of course it's okay," Joel replied. And then quieter, "She loves you." "I love her too," Zenith said, and Joel could see she meant it with every fiber of her being. 3 months after the reunion, on a quiet Tuesday evening, Zenith was helping Staris clean her room. They'd had a tea party earlier, and princess dresses and toy tiaras were scattered everywhere. "Time to put everything away, princess," Zenith said gently. As they picked up pillows and stuffed animals, Zenith noticed something tucked under Staris's pillow, a small piece of paper, folded and refolded so many times, the creases were wearing thin. "What's this, sweetheart?" Zenith asked gently. Staris's eyes went wide with panic. "That's private!" But Zenith had already started to unfold it, assuming it was a drawing or maybe a note from school. What she saw made her heart stop completely.
The paper was old, the pencil marks smudged in places from being touched so many times. In Staris's messy, childlike handwriting were words that made Zenith's hands begin to shake. "Dear Mommy in heaven, I miss you every day. It hurts in my chest sometimes, and I don't know how to make it stop. Daddy is so sad. He tries to hide it, but I can see. He doesn't laugh anymore. He doesn't sing the silly songs he used to sing. Can you please send someone to make him smile again? Someone who laughs and makes good cookies and doesn't mind that I talk too much. Someone who won't leave us. I promise I'll be good. I'll clean my room and do my homework, and I won't complain about vegetables anymore. I love you, Mommy. Please help us. Love, Staris. At the bottom, in careful, precise numbers, October 19th. Zenith's breath caught in her throat. She read the date again, not believing what she was seeing. October 19th. 3 months ago. The exact day, the exact morning, she'd chased Joel out of the cafe and asked him that desperate, humiliating question. The paper trembled in her hands. Tears began streaming down her face, falling onto the worn notebook paper and blurring the already smudged words. "You weren't supposed to read that," Staris whispered, her voice small and scared. "It was just for Mommy." Zenith sank down onto Staris's bed, the note clutched to her chest, unable to form words. Her entire body shook with sobs, deep, overwhelming sobs that came from somewhere beyond understanding. Joel appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of crying. "What's wrong? What happened?" Zenith couldn't speak. She just held out the note with shaking hands.
Joel took it, his brow furrowed with concern. As his eyes scanned the childish handwriting, his face went pale. He read it once, then twice, then a third time, as if trying to make sense of something impossible. "Did you know about this?" Zenith whispered through her tears. Joel shook his head slowly, his own eyes filling with tears. "I had no idea." Staris climbed into Zenith's lap, wrapping her small arms around her neck. "You came," she whispered against Zenith's shoulder. "You came just like I asked. Mommy sent you to us." The weight of those words settled over the room like something sacred. Zenith held Staris close, rocking her gently, unable to stop crying. Joel sat down beside them, and for a long moment, the three of them just held each other. "I wrote it and hid it under my pillow. Teacher said prayers go up to heaven, and my pillow was where I dream, so I thought maybe dreams and prayers are the same thing. Maybe Mommy could hear me better that way." Have you ever felt like something in your life happened for a reason? Like maybe there's more to this world than we can see? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. That night, after Staris had fallen asleep in Zenith's arms on the couch, Joel carefully carried his daughter to bed. When he returned to the living room, he found Zenith still sitting there, the note in her hands, staring at it like she was trying to solve an impossible equation. "I don't know if I believe in coincidences anymore," Joel said quietly, sitting beside her. "October 19th. She wrote this prayer on October 19th. That morning I woke up and decided I couldn't avoid the reunion anymore. I didn't plan to ask you, I barely knew you, but something made me chase you out of that cafe." She looked up at Joel, wonder and disbelief mingling in her brown eyes.
What if she really did send me? Zenith asked. What if Margot really did hear her baby girl's prayer and somehow, I don't know, nudged me in your direction? Joel reached over and took her hand. I don't know what to believe, but I know that whatever brought you into our lives, coincidence, fate, or a mother's love reaching across impossible distances, I'm grateful for it. Me too, Zenith whispered. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands intertwined, both of them processing the impossible beauty of what had happened. I love you, Joel said suddenly. The words came out raw and honest. I didn't mean to. I wasn't looking for it. But I love you, Zenith, and so does Staris. And if you'll have us, this broken little family that's trying to figure out how to live again, I'd like to stop pretending this is temporary. Zenith looked at him through fresh tears. I love you too, both of you, so much. When they kissed, it felt like healing, like two wounded souls finding home in each other. Joel and Zenith were married the following spring in a small, intimate ceremony held at Rilsey's Corner Cafe, the place where everything began. The cafe owner, Mrs. Rosa Martinez, had insisted on hosting it for free. You two brought real love through my doors. That's worth more than money.
she'd said with tears in her eyes. They pushed the tables aside and set up chairs in rows. White twinkle lights were strung across the ceiling, and mason jars filled with wildflowers decorated every surface. It was simple and perfect and completely them. Zenith wore a simple white dress that made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world, because when Joel looked at her, that's exactly what she saw reflected in his eyes.
Staris was the flower girl, wearing a blue dress she'd picked out herself. She practically bounced down the aisle, scattering rose petals with such enthusiasm that some ended up on the ceiling fan. Her giggling was infectious, and soon everyone in the small cafe was smiling. Joel's mother stood in the front row crying happy tears. She'd worried about her son for so long, watched him retreat into himself after Margot's death. Seeing him smile again, really smile, was a gift she'd stopped hoping for. When Joel and Zenith exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "You taught me that it's okay to be scared and still be brave," Zenith said, her voice shaking but strong. "You showed me that real love doesn't care about the size of your body, only the size of your heart. And you gave me the greatest gift I could ever receive, a family. You brought light back into our lives when I thought we'd live in darkness forever," Joel replied. "You showed Staris that it's safe to laugh again. And you showed me that love doesn't have to end just because someone we loved had to leave. There's always room for more love. Always." They sealed their promises with a kiss, while Staris cheered and their small gathering of friends applauded. Mrs. Martinez had baked a 3-tiered cake decorated with blue flowers for Staris. The little girl insisted on cutting the first piece herself, declaring that she was in charge of cake distribution for the day. 18 months later, they welcomed a baby boy named Cameron into their family. He had Zenith's blonde hair and Joel's quiet demeanor. Staris was obsessed with her baby brother, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to midnight feedings. "I'm the big sister," she announced proudly to anyone who would listen. "I have to teach him important stuff." One evening, when Cameron was 3 months old, Joel found Zenith standing in the living room, staring at something on the wall. It was Staris's note, the prayer that had been written 3.5 years ago. They'd had it professionally framed, and it hung in the center of their living room as a reminder of how their family had come together. "Do you ever think about that day?" Zenith asked softly. "Outside the cafe?" Joel wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Every day." "I was so scared," Zenith admitted. "So embarrassed. I thought you'd laugh at me or think I was pathetic." "I thought you were brave," Joel said. "Asking for help is one of the hardest things a person can do." Zenith leaned back against him, her eyes still on the framed note. She wrote, "Someone who laughs and makes good cookies and doesn't mind that I talk too much. Like she could see me before I even got there." "Maybe she could," Joel said quietly. "Or maybe her mom could, and she knew exactly who to send." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other, watching their family, Staris playing gently with Cameron on the floor, both children happy and safe and loved. "Do you know what the most beautiful part is?" Zenith asked. "What?" "I spent so many years believing what those people said about me, that I wasn't enough, that no one could love me, that I'd always be alone. But what they said was never true. It took a 7-year-old's prayer and a single dad's kindness to show me that." Joel kissed her forehead. "What they said was never true, because cruelty doesn't define truth. Love does."
2 years after their wedding, Zenith received an unexpected message on social media. It was from Veronica Mills. For a moment, Zenith considered deleting it without reading it, but curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the message. Zenith, I know I have no right to reach out to you after everything I did. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. But I wanted you to know that I've thought about that night at the reunion every day since it happened. Your husband was right. I was miserable in high school, and I'm ashamed to say I took that misery out on people who didn't deserve it. People like you. I'm in therapy now, working through why I felt the need to tear others down to feel better about myself. It's hard work, and most days I hate what I see when I look in the mirror. I saw your wedding photos on Facebook. You looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. And that little girl in the blue dress, your daughter? She looked at you like you hung the moon. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. And I'm glad you found happiness, even though I did everything I could to convince you that you didn't deserve it. You deserved it all along. Veronica. Zenith showed the message to Joel that night after the kids were in bed. What are you going to do? He asked. Zenith thought about it for a long time. Then she typed out a response. Veronica, thank you for your message. I appreciate your honesty and your apology. I hope therapy helps you find peace. What you did hurt me for a long time, but I learned something important because of it. Other people's cruelty says everything about them and nothing about me. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to let go of the anger I've carried. I hope you find happiness too. Zenith. She hit send and closed her laptop. That was gracious, Joel said. That was healing, Zenith corrected. For me, not for her. 5 years after that cold October morning when Zenith had chased Joel out of the cafe, the Carver family sat around their dinner table, a bigger table now, in a bigger house, but still filled with the same love that had brought them together. Steris was 12, tall and confident, talking excitedly about her upcoming middle school play. Cameron was 3, chattering away about dinosaurs and demanding everyone's attention. Zenith was pregnant with their 3rd child, a girl they'd already decided to name Margot, after the mother who'd started it all. Tell me the story again, Cameron demanded suddenly, as he often did, about how you and Mommy met. Joel and Zenith exchanged a smile. Your mom asked me a question. Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a day? Cameron recited from memory, giggling. And what did Daddy say? You don't have to pay me, Cameron announced proudly. And then Daddy was a superhero and protected Mommy from the mean lady. And then they fell in love because of my letter to Grandma Margot in heaven. Your sister's letter, Joel corrected gently. Our letter, Steris said firmly, because it brought us all together. That night, after the children were asleep, Joel found Zenith standing by the window, looking out at the stars. What are you thinking about? He asked. Everything, Zenith said softly. How different my life could have been if I hadn't asked you that question. If I'd let fear win. If I'd thrown away that reunion invitation like I did every other year. She turned to look at him, her hand resting on her growing belly. I was so convinced I wasn't worthy of love, that my body, my face, my entire existence was something to be ashamed of. And then you looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen. You were, Joel said simply. You are. I know that now, not because you told me, but because your love taught me. And that's the greatest gift you could have ever given me. Joel pulled her close, and they stood together in the quiet darkness, grateful for a 7-year-old's prayer, for the courage to ask a desperate question, and for the kindness of a single dad who said yes when he could have easily said no. Do you think Margot knows? Zenith asked quietly. How happy we are? Joel looked at the framed note on the wall, visible even from where they stood, and smiled. I think she's known all along. Because sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the most unlikely questions. Sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes love finds you in the form of a stranger, holding a cup of coffee, waiting for his life to begin again. All it takes is one moment of courage, one act of kindness, one prayer whispered into the darkness by a child who still believed in magic, and the willingness to believe that maybe, just maybe, The universe is paying attention after all. Thank you for being here, for watching this story, and for believing in the power of love that sees beyond appearances to the heart underneath. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that they're worthy of love exactly as they are. Because real love, the kind that heals and transforms and makes broken people whole again, doesn't care about the size of your body. It only cares about the size of your heart. And Zenith's heart, it was always big enough to hold an entire family. She just needed someone brave enough to see it.